Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Gary Gensler, who is President Joe Biden's SEC chair nominee, was questioned at a virtual hearing today. And as I mentioned in a recent video, I wasn't expecting him to be questioned specifically about Ripple or XRP. I thought, okay, maybe it could happen, but I really thought it to be rather unlikely. I thought this was going to be more of just kind of a general question type of situation, which is pretty close to how it ended up being, I would say. But I'll tell you, some of the ways that he was answering some of these questions, it's like he was hinting about XRP. Now, he wasn't, I'm not saying for sure he was necessarily thinking about Ripple and or XRP at the moment. Maybe it is just the case that some of this would just apply to all sorts of stuff going with the SEC versus Ripple and whether or not XRP represents an investment contract. But I'm telling you, just in listening to him and taking his words to heart, I was just sitting there wondering, I was like, are you hinting about XRP? Is XRP on your mind? And maybe it was. I mean, it's fair to speculate that, just given the fact that the biggest case that the SEC has ongoing right now is versus Ripple. And with the underlying issue being at the core is XRP an investment contract? I mean, is it actually a security? And of course the answer is no, but we'll see how this all goes. So, look, as far as, I'll just say this at the outset too, because look, as far as whether or not this will be a good thing, assuming Gary Gensler actually ends up getting approved, which I suspect will be the case. I don't think that there's any sort of stiff resistance against this. I just don't see that. Assuming he is, I just don't think it's going to be any worse than it was before. I don't think it could get much worse than when that asshat Jay Clayton, former SEC chair, was running things. So at least Gary Gensler, he is in a general sense pro crypto, and so whatever he thinks about XRP today, we'll just have to wait and see. He certainly thought that XRP was a security 3 years ago, but a lot has changed since then, and I think he understands that. I know he understands. He's talked about this. The idea that a cryptocurrency can go from centralized to decentralized and vice versa, and he also understands that as a result of that, there are implications as to like an potentially ever-changing status of a cryptocurrency from security to non-security. So lots to talk about here. There are all sorts of articles with similar headlines today, including this one from Decrypt. I don't really feel like running through it, but just to highlight a little taste of what was out in the world of crypto media. This one was titled, SEC Chair Nominee Gary Gensler says, Crypto a catalyst for change. Excuse me. And yes, indeed it is. Excuse me. And so there was this too. I mentioned this in another video. I'm going to keep highlighting this because this deserves to be highlighted. One of those probably. Attorney John Deaton, very pro XRP, a member of the XRP community. He recently, just within the last couple days or so, he launched Crypto Law. And the website address is crypto-law.us. It's what's on your screen right here. And I'm excited about this. He started a new Twitter account. I'll highlight the Twitter account in just a second because I got some stuff from that I actually want to share with you. But clearly, John Deaton has put a lot of work into this, and I always say, and I mean it, I am a big fan of propping up those in the XRP community that are contributing in meaningful ways, and holy hell he is. There's a lot to talk about here. And so he wrote this before the hearing this morning. As I record this, it is, it is March 2nd. And I live in the United States in the Midwest where I am. It's 8:16 p.m. So, it's been a good 10 hours or so, I think, since the hearing actually started. Before the hearing started, John Deaton wrote this. Check this out, just to kind of set the tone here. So he wrote, the Gensler confirmation hearing, 2 things for you to do. The U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs will hold a hearing today at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the confirmation of Gary Gensler to chair the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Every digital asset holder in the United States must understand that the next SEC chair will be the most important appointment in the history of cryptocurrencies. The future of crypto and our future as holders and investors will ride on the actions and inactions of the SEC in the next 4 years. As the former chair of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and an MIT professor who is well versed in blockchain technology, Gensler should know the importance of nurturing innovation. He should sit down in good faith with cryptocurrency investors, project developers, and companies building blockchain products and get to work with the rest of the administration on the regulatory framework for digital assets that this country urgently needs. And so he ended up providing a link so that people could watch the hearing. It's over now, of course. And then he provided a bunch of, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of water. I don't know what's going on. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, and then he provided a bunch of Twitter handles here on the page as well. So hopefully a bunch of people took advantage of this to kind of voice their opinions on various crypto SEC related topics here. And it's interesting, and before I forget, there was one comment that I wanted to share with you from Gary Gensler, and he was talking about, what if a cryptocurrency exchange is trading an investment contract? Meaning, what if a cryptocurrency exchange today is allowing the trading of a security? And he said, he was kind of vague, but this was interesting to me. He didn't outright say, well, we must stop that, because obviously, unless you're an accredited investor, you shouldn't be. You're not legally supposed to be able to purchase, securities, right? And so, basically, what he said was, we just need to make sure if there is an exchange that's trading a security, we need to make sure that we have sufficient investor protections in place. So why is it that he didn't say no? We need to stop that. He said because the way that he worded it's like, no, we'll allow it, we just need to regulate it. That's what it sounded like to me. And if he meant something different, he should have been much more precise, frankly. But that's one of the things, frankly, to me that stood out the most. I was like, wait, what? Why? What? It's like, are you going to have some sort of policy in place to where even if something's a security, that non-accredited investors can now trade it on cryptocurrency exchanges if it meets certain criteria? I would love for him to flesh that out further. And if he meant something completely different, hey, fair enough. But then I just go back to, you should have been more precise, Gary Gensler. Excuse me. And so here's a tweet from John Deaton, who wrote, while watching the Gary Gensler hearing, I could have sworn that Senator Toomey was talking about the SEC when he was describing previous directors of the CFPB when he said it overstepped its jurisdiction and overreached. And check this out. He said its regulation by enforcement approach was found by the D.C. Circuit Court to violate the bedrock principles of due process. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Ripple's due process / fair notice defense has real teeth. Don't let those claiming otherwise fool you. And so what he's talking about right there is we found out recently that there was a cryptocurrency exchange, at least one, in 2019 that asked the SEC for regulatory clarity because they said, hey, we're allowing the trading of XRP. What's the status here? And the SEC did not provide fair notice regarding specifics of XRP. They didn't say, hey, this is a problem. They just didn't say no. They just allowed them to continue trading it. And what John Deaton here is saying is that there's precedent for this legal defense, and it has real teeth, as John Deaton put it here. And then there was this, and so this is a tweet from Crypto Law, and I got to tell you, so this is his new account. He just started this one, and it's for his Crypto Law website. It's at Crypto Law US. Pause the video if you've not yet done this. Hop on Twitter if you have Twitter, and go ahead and follow. It's at Crypto Law US. If you don't have Twitter, pause the video anyway. Sign up for Twitter just so that you can follow Crypto Law US, and then follow Moon Lambo. He's a pretty cool guy. And so here's what he wrote here at the Gensler hearing. Because mind you, at this hearing, it's basically a bunch of senators asking questions of Gary Gensler, and a lot of them also pontificating a bit, but that is what it is. And so Senator Rounds, this is Senator Mike Rounds. He asks about outdated crypto regulatory regime and what Congress and SEC can do to create forward-thinking regulatory environment for innovators in this space. Gensler replies that, quote, these innovations have been a catalyst for change, and that cryptocurrencies, quote, have brought new thinking to payments and financial inclusion, but also issues of investor protection that we still need to attend to. And so that's what I'll say to Gary Gensler, to his credit, even specifically as it pertains to Ripple and XRP. He actually thoroughly understands XRP's use case as a bridge currency. He taught about it at MIT. Seriously, in class, he taught about the use case of XRP. Now, while he was doing that, he still thought that it was a security, but he gets the technology and how it's fundamentally useful. And so I'm just hoping that he'll look back ultimately and be like, okay, Ripple was transparent, even if they sold what at the time they allegedly should have known was a security. The SEC let them skate by for 8 years without taking action, and then they just let it build up as more and more infractions built up as they sold more and more XRP, just multiplying the problem. Like, the SEC made that happen. The SEC allowed that to happen. So I'm just hoping that it'll come in and where like, even if he believes that back in the day, that XRP actually back then was a security, I'm hoping that today he can be like, okay, well, Ripple has no special powers over XRP or the XRP ledger. It's functionally being used today, and it's ridiculous that the SEC didn't clamp down sooner. With all of this taken into consideration, I think that a rational, unbiased human would say, okay, we got to find some middle ground right here. That's what I'm hoping for. And that's why with him coming in, there's a potential for settlement here. I just don't think, there's any way that it was going to happen with that asshat Jay Clayton at the helm. But, with Gary Gensler, maybe there's a chance here. So cautiously optimistic, right? And then there was, here's another one. So this is another one having to do with Mike Rounds, Senator Mike Rounds. Excuse me. Responding to Senator Mike Rounds on crypto, Gensler said the following: I will work with other commissioners to both promote the new innovation, but also at the core, ensure for investor protection. If something was a security, for instance, it falls under securities laws. If there are exchanges that trade those, to ensure there is appropriate investor protection on those exchanges. So promote technology, but stay true to our core values on investor protection and capital formation right there. And so the first part of that, if it's a security, for instance, it falls under securities law. Yes. See, to me, that's just like, that doesn't tell me anything. Of course, if something is a security, it falls under securities laws. We're questioning what constitutes a security. Can we get to that? Can we get to that part of it right there? And then the second part was what I cited just a few minutes ago, because I want to make sure I didn't miss this. But it's this idea of, if there are exchanges that trade securities, to ensure there is appropriate investor protection on those exchanges. So, why? I don't get it. And you know what it made me think back to is with the Kick Interactive case, which the SEC, for them, it was a slam dunk. The SEC litigated against Kick Interactive, fully adjudicated, and it was found that Kick Interactive sold their KIN token, KIN, and it was a security. They were then allowed to continue. They got an exemption. They were allowed to continue selling the KIN token. They just had to file an exemption form with the SEC and give 45 days notice. So it didn't ruin their business at all. And the KIN token was allowed to continue to be traded on cryptocurrency exchanges. So, there's some sort of precedent where you can see, like, even if something was deemed to be sold as a security, that it can still be traded on exchange. And so we know that has happened. That's one example right there. And I'm just sitting here thinking, well, Ripple's, it's got to be at the forefront of his mind. Like, he is well aware of what's happening with the SEC versus Ripple. Duh, right? No brainer. So he has this idea in his mind where even if something's a security, it can still be traded. Well, here's the things that matter to me. As long as Ripple can still sell XRP, and as long as XRP can still be traded on United States-based exchanges, we're good. Without those two things, we have a serious problem. And I've talked about that in other videos. I don't want to go into why. It'd be outside the scope of this video. I've thoroughly articulated over the past few months why I firmly believe that. But this is why, again, I feel cautiously optimistic that there's going to be a path forward here. All right. And then there was Senator Cynthia Lummis. She asked how blockchain can promote financial inclusion, reduce risk, and create new markets, to which Gensler responded, I think it's already doing some of that right now. It's been a catalyst for change. Central banks are looking at how to provide more inclusive payment structures, more inclusive payment tokens. He adds that other payment system providers are looking to say, how do we provide payment systems that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and at lower costs, both cross-border and domestically? Blockchain technology itself is a shared accounting system, which has led to new thoughts on how to do trade and finance and medical records technology. And so clearly, again, he does get the big picture, so credit where it's due. And this goes back to the idea also of we're entering an increasingly liquid world with everything being tokenized. You don't need a bunch of middlemen managing all of this. And so even with just the stock market, stock's just this idea of only being able to trade during certain business hours. And even if you don't believe in cryptocurrency, holy hell, blockchain's a solution so that you don't have the middleman, it's more efficient, it's a lower cost, and you can trade 24/7. Why would we not allow that? It works great for crypto trading 24/7. So to me, it's an inevitable evolution. It is indeed coming here. All right. And then Senator Cynthia Lummis, asks for how consumer protections for digital assets can be provided in a way that, quote, does not hamper innovators. Gensler says, I think it is important to protect consumers and investors. One area is around the custody of their funds. Digital assets, the actual ownership relies on something called a private key in cryptography and ensuring that kind of custody works. He notes Wyoming, New York, and perhaps South Carolina have looked at that. He added that investor protection goes beyond the custody of assets. And Gensler said that investor protection must ensure crypto markets are, quote, free of fraud and manipulation. And I think that's the greater challenge, frankly, because some markets, usually operating overseas, have been rife with fraud. You can only control so much of it in the United States, but fair enough statement, I would say. And as far as custody, and this is where it goes back to like who's in charge of what, because like you've got the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency when Brian Brooks was in charge until recently, stating that now banks absolutely can legally custody cryptocurrencies for customers for the first time. It's like who is fundamentally in charge of this? Like, hopefully he's not disputing, who has the right to regulate over that particular aspect of this. But yeah, of course, that's something where you want to make sure that there's sufficient investor protections in place, whether it's just custody and which is completely separate from the issue of whether or not investors are purchasing an investment contract. All right, excuse me. And then there was Senator Steve Daines, and he asks how SEC should decide to engage on enforcement actions and when rulemaking is more appropriate. Gensler replies that enforcement is about, quote, following the facts and the law where they take you. Right, and so this is true, but it's like, okay, how are you perceiving it, though? Like, how are you perceiving the facts? To what degree does it matter that something is decentralized, and what does that mean from a legal perspective in terms of whether or not it can represent a security? See, devil's always in the details. But he said, quote, using limited resources to effectuate where there are the greatest problems in the market. He added that rulemaking is very different, but didn't elaborate. So who knows? Are they going to continue regulating through enforcement? I hope not, but we don't really have a strong indication one way or another on what's going to happen there. So we shall see. I mean, no matter what, even though Ripple wasn't mentioned, and I didn't think they would be. I didn't think XRP would specifically be mentioned. It wasn't. It's at the forefront of this guy's mind, because this is the primo case for him. That he's going to have to tackle on day one, assuming he ends up getting confirmed, which I suspect he will. And, the things that he says here, if it doesn't line up with his actions moving forward, that's not going to look good for him. So I'm sure that he thoroughly thought through all of this before answering these questions that weren't specifically about Ripple and XRP. I'm sure he did. But I'll go ahead and wrap up there. There will be more to talk about on this topic in the coming days, I'm sure. But I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.